Thank you very much, Florent, for inviting me to give this presentation in French today at your conference.
Donc, je vais essayer de trouver... Voilà, c'est parfait.
Today, I'll give you a presentation on a project that is quite conceptual. How to use a predictive modeling approach to mineral exploration. As you know, AI is very trendy today. Everyone's talking about it. Our company, Azimut Exploration, has been around for 20 years working in applying predictive modeling throughout Quebec to optimize the ore deposit discovery process, to improve this process. So there are three main parts to Azimut. We have a quality exploration portfolio. We are the largest claim holder in Quebec yes, and mainly for gold, copper, nickel, and lithium. Azimut made a discovery in 2019 on the Elmer project, which is 100% owned by the company, and we are calculating an initial discovery of this gold resource. We've also developed a method that we call AZtechMine. It's a predictive modeling system that works. It is being used routinely right now to generate quality projects at the Quebec level, throughout Quebec. Azimut's portfolio is essentially focused in James Bay area with the Elmer gold project, of course, a lithium project with 13 claim blocks, James Bay nickel with 111 nickel blocks or claim blocks, and in north of Quebec we have Rex and Rex South projects where we are in partnerships with these claims. Now let's get back to the topic of this presentation. My talk will be divided in four main parts. First, the main exploration challenges in Quebec, but also worldwide. Second of all, the processing principles, data processing principles for managing projects. The third part will focus on the practical implementation of these principles, and the fourth part will focus on our major results. We could have a full conference just on this topic, but as you know, today in the framework of the transition towards green economy, there's a very high demand for critical and strategic minerals and metals, namely cobalt, nickel, copper, lithium, as well as graphite, as we will see later on. But it's a demand that is completely enormous, and it is raising a challenge for the mining industry worldwide. We need 4 or 5 times more known mines. So the future is very sunny for our sector. We don't know what will come about with this transition, but the demand is huge. And now we know that we need a lot more deposits worldwide. But in the last 15 to 20 years, we've realized that it's more and more difficult to find deposits that meet the demand. So we need more deposits, but we are discovering less and less large deposits. What's a paradox here is that in the meantime, there's exponential production of geoscientific data and digital data. And usually data is the main tool allowing for discovery when we are in exploration. Unfortunately, the data doesn't allow us to be more efficient. Actually, we are less efficient, which is a paradox. Since 2003, this is the core of the company's activity. We are using digital data to inverse this trend, to maximize efficiency in the use of digital data, to be more efficient in making discoveries. So Azimut is using a digital process for geoscientific data processing to optimize and increase probabilities of discovery. And this approach was developed in Quebec. In a very clear manner, Quebec is recognized worldwide as having one of the best geoscientific databases for exploration. It's exceptional. Quebec is used as an example everywhere in the world. Our processing principles are quite simple. There are a lot of digital parameters that are usable. They're collected into a database that was fully structured at the Quebec level, and we're trying to extract the statistical signature of deposits and of known occurrences using the entire database of known data. So it's quite simple. We've divided Quebec in pixels, in cells of 200 meters by 200 meters, which gives us 87.5 million pixels of 200 by 200 meters, and we have up to 70 parameters per pixel. So it is a huge database. And we have 70 columns and 87.5 million lines. So it's a huge matrix used to extract the statistical signature of deposits and or of occurrences that correspond to with several types of interest that are of interest for us and that allow us to identify targets that have never been explored or underexplored. So it's a huge database of 500 gigabytes. We use a purely data-driven methodology, non-interpretive. It relies exclusively on measured numerical data. There is no interpretation. It is used over regular grids. It is not patchy. It is not local data. It does not take into account any interpreted data. We do not use that. There is no weighting, parameter weighting. It is fully data-driven. It is truly the data that speak for themselves and that allow us to extract a specific signature. So a major part of this processing is through automated procedures, and we are in full control of the way the processing is executed. Our scale of analysis is very important to recognize important targets that could correspond to deposits or mineralized systems. What's important is to have a regional view and not a local view. The further away we look at things, the higher the chances of recognizing major systems. It allows us also to distinguish marginal anomalies and major anomalies that are sometimes so large that we don't recognize them. We're looking at them from too close. The data used, and once again, it's important to focus on this, is geochemical data, first of all, multi-element data, multi-element geochemistry data, namely lake bottom sediments that are a very efficient tool to recognize large mineralized systems throughout Quebec. So geophysical data, magnetism, gravity, electromagnetism, radioactivity, and all other parameters such as geology, drilling, remote sensing, and digital topography. But the two main elements in predictive processing are multi-element geochemistry data and geophysical data. To give you an idea of the incredible power of this database in Quebec, we can see on the left a map of points that represent the lake bottoms that were sampled throughout Quebec. So we have 500,000 samples over 1.5 square kilometers. So the small black dots are lakes that were sampled throughout Quebec. And each of these lakes was analyzed for 50 to 60 geochemical parameters, which represents around 12 million of geochemical analyses. And that allows to identify the background in metals associated to each of these samples. So we can do truly sophisticated data processing that allows to extract this data. So these samples, lake bottom samples, are completed with rock sampling and geological observations, which we see on the right. This map has 1 million points. It gives us a precise description of each of these points. It's an incredible tool for data processing that is developed from these maps. We also have a database of drills, which represents almost 150,000 holes. Each black dot represents a drilling. At BTB, it was drilled so much that it represents the major drilling efforts in Quebec in history. So we could look at this map and think that everything has been drilled in Abitibi, but if you look closer, you'll see that there's still potential for drilling. We see Timmins on an area near Timmins. We see that the major part of Quebec remains unexplored, and a lot of drilling can still be done. So this shows the relationship between theoretical knowledge, for example, geophysics and geochemical data of lake bottoms, and the true the latest data we've obtained through drilling. There's still a lot of potential in Quebec as well as in Ontario to know more. Geophysical data is very important. We have incredible geophysical coverage in Quebec, which is digitized. All of this work is digitized with cells of 200 meters by 200 meters throughout Quebec, which gives us incredible data to extract signatures and generate new exploration targets. There are three main steps. We do numerical data processing, which provides statistical footprints of already known mineral deposits and prospects. Then we have a more empirical step. We prioritize targets. We look at the components of footprints, the anomalous contrast, and the strength and contrast, the size of the targets, their shape, as well as looking into exploration history. Were these targets already explored or not? This is what we look into. What's the most important thing is not just to do a predictive analysis, but the predictions must be validated on the field. That's the most important step. Nowadays, a lot of companies and consultants do predictive analyses, but we haven't heard of validation. No validation is being done. The strength of our company is to combine predictive analysis with validation on the field. That's what makes the true difference. We have 20 years of experience in validation of targets that were modelized with this method. What Azimut has been doing for 20 years is modeling at the Quebec scale with all types of various deposits, uranium, rare earths, lithium, gold, etc., rare earths as well, yes. So this gives us very precise data on the mineral potential of Quebec. I'm looking at my watch here, 5 minutes left. So this was applied to various types of metals, such as gold. Several modelizations were done throughout Quebec. But if we focus only on Bay James, we see that we have captured the footprint of 51% of gold deposits and prospects, and only 1.5% of the surface area was analyzed. So we can capture a very specific footprint of these mineralized systems through our tools, meaning that 98.5% of the surface area is deemed less important for us. We are focusing on 1.5% of the analyzed surface area. So it's an analysis tool that's extremely powerful that allows us to focus our work in the most prospective regions. We've done the same thing for uranium and nickel. What's important to note that in the 1.5% remaining that we consider as significant and important, there are new targets that have comparable footprints that were never explored. That's what we're focusing on. For example, for uranium, we can talk about uranium because there's a moratorium on uranium in Quebec, so we can talk about them more freely, but uranium footprints does exist in lake bottoms, but with predictive modeling, we can really focus on the most interesting parts of the systems. And you see that we've made discoveries, subsequent discoveries on the field. We went to validate these targets, and our predictive model was accurate. We validated this throughout Quebec. Since 2003, this allowed us to discover more than 500 new prospects in regions that were completely unexplored. These are the various zones that were showcased by Azimut for the last 20 years, which represents hundreds of new mineralized prospects, and several of these prospects correspond to systems that are several dozens of kilometers in length with a true potential for development. I'll go over this quickly. We have a list of results, significant results. We could spend our day talking about these. However, we only have a few minutes. Azimut continues to generate new projects. As we speak, in the region of James Bay, there's an incredible boom of mining exploration. This is unbefore-seen. Most of the James Bay region is staked and covered with claims, with a lot of explorers coming from all parts of the world, and their main focus is lithium. But there's potential for copper, for gold, as well as for lithium in James Bay. It's a fully emergent region, and we will hear about this region in Canada and in the world. The James Bay region is going through radical transformation in Canada. It will have an impact on the Canadian economy. Azimut is in a leadership position for James Bay. We've associated with SOQUEM on several projects for copper, gold, and now lithium. But lately, we've generated a major portfolio for nickel. We have 111 blocks of claims for nickel with the potential for copper, cobalt, and platinoids, so that they're represented by the red dots we see on the map. There are also several lithium projects, and some of them are under a joint venture with us in SOQUEM. So these are the green blocks, and the lithium is very important for green economy, and you'll hear about these projects in the next years because they're emergent. Azimut is one of the main leaders for the predictive modeling applied to mining exploration, and our experimentation playground is Quebec. We are not in an experimental phase at all. This is not accidental. This is part of the DNA of the company to data processing applied to project generation. Our system is called AZtechMine. It is a white box. It's a white box expert system, fully controlled by us, as opposed to AI, where full sections of the processing are not controlled by the users. Our system is data processing system, very efficient, under our full control. We understand exactly what our computer, what the machine does. This has allowed us to validate more than 500 prospects and discover these prospects of major mineralized systems. It allowed us to sign many agreements. In 20 years, we've had 35 partnership agreements with 19 different companies, including 14 agreements with senior companies, including Rio Tinto, with whom we have 3 agreements, Newmont, 2 agreements, IAM Gold, 2 agreements, Hecla Mining, 2 agreements, SOCAM, 2 strategic agreements, and one of the main major European mining companies, it's a Polish company, KGHM, with whom we have 1 agreement. And we have new initiatives for nickel and lithium in James Bay. Thank you very much.